Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Well, the results are in, and the English leaders debate actually had a significant impact on the polling for the Canadian federal election. Going into it, with the Main Street Research tracking poll, the Liberals were leading the Conservatives, with undecideds included, by 3 to 4 points on some days. And now, after the debate, the Conservatives are in fact leading by 3 points. I want to get more into the numbers in just a second, but first I just want to do my obligatory reminder that if you like my channel and my federal election coverage, make sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet a subscriber. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by mid-December of this year, or else I owe all my friends dinner. And then leave a comment on the topic of the day. Do you know anyone who watched that debate? And did they actually change their opinion about who they're going to vote for? I'd love to hear any anecdotal examples of someone who was voting Liberal previously, but you know that after they watched that debate, they were not impressed by Mark Carney. In fact, they are considering voting Conservative now. Well, the other thing I want to highlight right now about this poll and why I have it on the page where it includes undecideds is that undecideds have jumped from about 3% before the debate, because as time goes on in the election, usually the undecideds keep becoming less and less and less as people start making their choices. Pre-debate, it was at 3%. Post-debate, the undecideds have jumped back up to 6%. That is very bad for the Liberals, because all of that has mostly come out of their support. In these charts, with the undecideds added in, the Liberals used to be able to get up to sometimes even 43% in these Main Street Research polls with undecideds in. Now they're at 38% and the Conservatives are at 41%. Again, the day before the debate, the Liberals were 3 or 4 points higher than the Conservatives, and now the Conservatives are 3 points higher than they are. That is a massive shift. The dilemma for many voters in this election, especially those who consume a lot of legacy media, is, well, I want to vote for the Liberals to oppose Donald Trump because in some people's minds, abstractly, you're taking a shot at Donald Trump by giving Mark Carney and the Liberals a vote. But they know, but I'm giving the Liberals a fourth term. That doesn't seem to make much sense. In fact, Mark Carney, just like an hour ago, did his big policy announcement, his platform announcement, where he said he wants to add another $126 billion in spending to the government's line items. Like they're going to add $126 billion in spending over the next 4 years. Yet he's pretending that he's some sort of fiscal hawk. And while investing in the economy, he's also going to not spend so wastefully. He has a different definition of wasteful spending than I do, apparently, because $126 billion in new spending over the next 4 years would trash the economy, because it's not a bunch of random money that just dropped from the sky and it's going to benefit us. You are taking more from taxpayers to spend on things that taxpayers did not want, or at least it is not a high priority to spend money on it. And so, yeah, the Liberals are the exact same. And that is the dilemma playing out in people's minds. They, because of, again, legacy media propaganda, they think Poilievre is too much like Trump. He's too much of a fighter. He's too much of an attack dog. He's unpleasant. The debate kind of clarified that he's not unpleasant. You only see legacy media clips of Poilievre when he's going after people. And frankly, when he was going after people, he was right to do so. But people can be kind of silly sometimes, and they're like, well, I don't want someone who's negative. Well, if the government's messing up all the time, what do you want them to do? Stand up and talk about how the air smells so fresh today and the birds sing so beautifully? Or do you want him to actually go after the government for the scandals, for the overspending, for the corruption? You should want the person to do that. But people get turned off by that for whatever reason. But the debate, Poilievre, while he was going after Mark Carney hard, he would also spin every question into a positive answer himself on what the Conservatives want to do. So he'd hit Carney, and then he'd spin back and talk about why the Conservatives have a new vision for Canada that's very positive, bright, and sunny, which is exactly what he needed to do, because he took that third of Liberal voters who are soft Liberal supporters. I've been talking about this for weeks. The Liberals' big Achilles heel in this election is that they are relying on about 36% of people who are not super decided if they're going to show up to vote Liberal to show up and vote for them. And those people, I think, are the main group who a couple nights ago when they were watching the English debate, they're like, oh, goodness, Carney cannot negotiate with Trump. And Poilievre is not like Rosemary Barton has been portraying. He's not like what Chantal Hubert says or Andrew Coyne has said. He's actually a fine guy. He seems nice. He seems genuine. Mark Carney seems extremely ungenuine. Not only did he look like a disappointed lizard that entire debate because everyone kept attacking him for good reason, and he has the personality of beige wallpaper, but he is also extremely inauthentic at that. He is just a squawking script. You can feel the writer's room while Mark Carney is talking as he keeps using the word fundamentally and catalyze. And I think, what other words was he using? He always uses crisis as well. Crisis, Trump, fundamentally, and catalyze are Mark Carney's 4 favorite words in the English language. So yeah, I think that debate is going to actually have massive impact on election day. In fact, it was great that it happened right before early voting because it jazzed up conservatives and a lot of liberals. When early voting is going on and you want to be driving out all your votes early to make sure that they are registered and you're not losing people on election day because they were busy, those people are now nervous to show up because Carney didn't look good and Poilievre looked really good. And in fact, even Jagmeet Singh looked good compared to Carney. Blanchet looked very good for Quebec voters compared to Carney if they were in the Montreal donut area where it's basically just a fight between the Liberals and the Bloc. So, very good stuff all around for conservatives, considering that you don't just want the Conservatives to do well, you want the Bloc to do well, and you want the NDP to do well to hold down the Liberals in certain parts of the country. So right now, I would say that the path to victory for the Conservatives looks very clear. Southwestern Ontario, the Ottawa area, there's a couple of seats to pick up. I'm in Ottawa right now. Canada looks very easy for the Conservatives to win. Greg Kung has been doing a fantastic job in Canada. I was driving around. I actually brought my mom with me just because she likes campaigning too sometimes. We were driving around, dropping off get out the vote literature and talking to people. And we were only counting signs that were directly on our path driving on private lawns, not just random public signs. And we were counting like in the first 30 signs, it would be like 23 Kung signs on lawns to like 7 genocide signs. And by the way, genocides, I will be so happy if she loses to Greg, not just because Greg's a good candidate and a good conservative, but because genocides is the dumbest MP in Parliament right now. She talks like Kamala Harris without any of the laughing. She talks like this. And don't you guys know that we actually got inflation down to just 2%? 2% is 1 plus 1, which makes 2. She is horrible. She is like, for some reason, the Family and Child Services Minister. And she is, again, another person where every time she speaks like Mark Carney, I am so well aware that a script is in the room somewhere that she has at least studied before speaking. She cannot speak off the cuff. And that is one of the big things for the Liberals is because they're such a manufactured party, because they don't really have any independent characters in their party. All their people are so reliant on staff and scripts that you can it just absolutely kills their ability to win a tough election, because the Conservative candidate seems like a genuine guy who can say whatever he wants, and the Liberal seems like somebody who has to ask permission to answer yes or no to a question. It's insane. But in Canada, it's like, again, 22 Kung signs to 7 genocide signs. Maybe I'm just in super conservative areas of this riding, but I've been told that back in the last election, although genocide's only won by 2,000 votes, it was not like this when it comes to the signs. I've heard the Conservatives have put out more than 2,300 signs in Canada, mostly on private lawns. That is absolutely insane. And make sure you do get a lawn sign if you still don't have one yet. So Conservatives doing well in southwestern Ontario, doing well around eastern Ontario and the Ottawa Donut. The Conservatives are actually improving quite a bit in Atlantic Canada. Rural Atlantic Canada ridings are probably going to go pretty consistently Conservative. And the Conservatives don't even need all of them. They just need to basically grab up a third to half of the Atlantic seats to be in business and going for the minority government. In BC, the Conservatives are really cleaning up in the lower mainland at the moment, and they're actually going to probably grab up 3 seats on the island. The island, which I believe didn't have a Conservative seat before this. So it's gains everywhere right now. They'll gain Yukon. The only thing I do want to say about British Columbia right now, to kind of make a slight sidestep on the topic of how the Conservatives are doing. One, Conservatives are doing really well. Working class neighborhoods, that is the big strength for the Conservatives this election. They might even drop seats in Alberta, but it doesn't matter. They might drop a couple metropolitan ridings in like Calgary and Edmonton, but still, the gains are so good elsewhere, we can kind of weather that storm. In BC, though, if you live in the riding of Abbotsford South Langley, I'm going to repeat that, Abbotsford South Langley, please vote for Mike de Jong, the independent. The Conservative candidate, Sukhman Gill, is not a real Conservative at all. In fact, they had to kick out Mike de Jong from that nomination in order to shove Sukhman Gill through, who was a Liberal poll worker as of last year, advertised on his LinkedIn page. Don't vote for that guy. It's not just because he's the Conservative brand candidate doesn't mean he's the more conservative guy. And Mike de Jong can easily win that race. A lot of people are getting behind Mike de Jong, so don't end up with somebody who wasn't conservative until 5 seconds ago and somehow sold 2,000 memberships to win the nomination in Abbotsford South Langley in like a month and a half. Which, if you're wondering, does that happen often? It never happens. That's not real, I'm going to say. I worked for like a year and a half for the Calgary Signal Hill nomination and got kicked out randomly because they wanted somebody else, and that person still didn't even win because they didn't want me to win too. And it took me about a year and a half to get 1,000 supporters. It's very difficult. No one gets 2,000 in a month and a half and then has to kick out Mike de Jong to still win it at the end of the day, because even they didn't have good turnout with the frankly fake members they were signing up. So anyways, that should be mostly it for me today. Sorry that this turned into a bit of a rant, but this is very good. The debate has helped the Conservatives a lot, and I'm actually going to scroll down here just to show you that right now, Mark Carney's approval after that debate got really bad. Look at this. Mark Carney now has 34% strongly unfavorable, 14% somewhat unfavorable, and then he has 18% favorable and 39% very favorable. His very unfavorables are way outnumbering his very favorables, and overall, he's at I believe actually he's at a net negative approval rating, which is terrible for somebody like him, somebody who has had so much artificial positive media push and spin. He is falling down because he's inauthentic. People saw it on the debate stage, and even if the media's not really been reporting on it outside of the few conservative legacy outlets like The Sun and the National Post, even just through the Liberal advertising, they're not doing well. I forgot to mention this in my debate recap. The Liberals lost the debate. Mark Carney lost because the clips they played of the debate were mostly only 5, 6, 7 seconds, because you can't get very good moments from Carney for very long. They were 7 seconds of him hitting the script really well, and he hit the line he wanted to say well, and then right after that, he was getting clobbered again. So the clips that they were posting were like nothing. They posted his entire closing statement, and then they posted a few moments where he was able to deliver the lines he practiced, and that's it. He never had a good moment against someone else. He never made a good call out because he's a weakling and cannot deal with any foreign leader, let alone Donald Trump. So anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that great stuff, and I'll see you all later.